Today's subject is so important and so dear to me, and it really boils down to common misperceptions that I've come to observe in myself, in my own development, and what I see time and time again happening in the world. We are what I would say that expression, pulling the cart before the horse, and pretty much. Another way to put it is we're running before we learn to walk, and that's why we're stumbling. You can't, begin to try to race before you learn the fundamentals. And I think what's happened is that we're compensating through life. We want things to get better. We don't feel very good. We're actually suffering a lot deep inside. If you really take a hard look at what's going on inside us, there's a deep need for healing. And what happens is, instead of addressing that deeper healing that needs to be done, is we tend to compensate. We tend to look for shortcuts. And that's not a judgment. It just happens without us even consciously looking to do so. And so positive thinking, for the most part, when people pick that up and try to execute that strategy, we tend to stumble time and time again with it because it's a premature venture. We're trying to be positive and trying to negate all the things that we think are negative, and to reach that state of being that we think will rescue us from where we are. So you can see there's compensation and escape mechanisms occurring all over there. We're trying to get away from where we are, and that's a red flag in itself. And of course that desire to improve is there. So it may seem like I'm talking in contradictions here, but I acknowledge that we are trying to improve ourselves and we are trying to get somewhere in some level. And yet, when that begins to cause this pressure, this race to some end, the pressure's there at times. But when that begins to override our capacity to look at the things that we think are in the way, such as the negative, what we call negative thinking, the lower self. If we're trying to ascend beyond it, we can often, what we can do is start to play games with ourselves, start to really become blind to these aspects of our being that have so much to teach us, so much wisdom to offer us in our journey towards self-improvement and continual development. So it's contradictory on some levels, it seems, but it makes a lot of sense. We have to be where we are. And I'm not talking about being in the now, because that can have a lot of other conflict attached to it, which I'll deal with in another video. But what I want to address here is that we have to, as we try to pursue things like positive thinking, I invite you to really look at and create that safe space to look at the things that we deem to be negative and the things that we tend to condemn. Because it is in those things, let me give you some examples, like anger, frustration, judgment, envy, jealousy, all the things that we've been conditioned to deny and repress. Whenever they come up in our being, we try to flick them off, try to negate them, try to switch our behaviors so that we can be in that Zen state that we think we need to be in. And of course, those states are wonderful, but what we tend to do is override what's happening right beneath us, right in the moment. That experience that we're in the moment, we're trying to get out of, but that experience itself is not in the way, it is the way. That's the key here. And I think that a lot of the positive thinking that we're doing is premature because we have so much judgment and so much denial around other aspects of the human experience that we have been taught to condemn, that we've been taught to believe are wrong, that are negative. And that's the issue for me. This is not a criticism of positive thinking, but more an intention and a hope that those who are watching this video will maybe take a moment and say, maybe this is something to explore. Where is this desire for positive thinking coming from? Is it coming from, some energetic compensation that we're trying to override the reality that we're in? And if so, that could create all sorts of distortions and all sorts of unhealthy mechanisms that we're just jumping from state to state. You know, we're trying to move the furniture around into that ideal position that we call positive, so to speak. And we seem to turn a blind eye to the fact that the entire room is messed up. The entire layout is working against us, which I've called the operating system earlier. So that's what we need to look at. We need to look at how we're organizing our thoughts and not so much get so caught up in the nature of those thoughts and trying to switch them. That's an endless game. I don't know, a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Trying to move from positive to negative, all the time, you know, not taking a hard look. And when I talk about a hard look, I'm not talking about an intellectual inquiry, but more an awareness, holding the space, not only going in the mind, but going in the body, the deeper places in which a lot of these energetic states are held. Anger is not just a mental thing. It's not just words we say and thoughts that we have, but it's actually sitting in the body. And, you know, I'm just learning more and more about that day by day. And that's awareness. It's not just mental. It's physiological. It's so many layers. So that's the issue, is that all this positive thinking can become very, very negative when we're actually engaging in subtle acts of denial. And a lot of it is subtleties that I'm talking about. And if you're not willing to sit in the awareness, to see the truth for yourself, what is true for you. You know, if it's not, it's not. But to look at what's true for you, because life is a personal experience. And I think the only one you really truly owe honesty to is yourself. And of course, the trick there is that when you're honest with yourself, you tend to be honest with others and honest with the world around you. So those are my thoughts on how positive thinking can get really negative. So just something to watch out for, in the sense of not to be worried about, but to go into. As always, thanks for your time. I want to wish you a fantastic day, night, whatever it is. All the best.